Um, so I apologize, my computer's kind of noisy. Um, I get a question a lot, and I wanted it to be the first thing that I addressed on my YouTube channel because I feel like it's the very foundation of everything that I want to talk about related to this. Um, I received the question, though it's usually phrased as a statement, um, that feminism isn't relevant anymore, so why do I believe it? And again, people usually just say, well, feminism isn't relevant. I don't understand why you believe that. Like, women can wear pants and stuff now. I don't get it. And they're basically asking me why I believe what I believe. And that's a legitimate question. I I think sometimes that they have ill intent when asking that question, but I think most people are just curious. Like, they just want to know why you believe something like that. And I think it's important to realize that a lot of people um, view feminists and feminism as kind of how it's defined on television. And often it's not defined very well. Usually, when feminism or sexism is brought up, it's in the form of what has been aptly called the straw feminist, where they portray these extremely over the top extremist views that are supposed to be feminists. And so I think a lot of people, without really realizing it, sort of attach those two ideas where they think, okay, well, this is what my idea of feminism is these extreme women who like throw bowling balls at people's cars and stuff. Uh, Thank you, Ally McBeal. And all of these other things. But I sort of view you as sane, hopefully, if they're a nice person. I sort of view you as sane, and I'm not attaching these ideas. And that's kind of how these people tend to perceive that. And for that reason, it's really important to not get angry when people ask you these questions, which it's really easy to sort of build that, especially because the internet has been such a negative place for women. And the internet is actually the reason that I am a feminist. I mean, it's not every reason, but it's the reason that I've come into it at my age and why I got really involved with it. Um, I grew up in a really traditional family, uh, white Christians, the 50s apple pie and baseball kind of American dream type family. Uh, and it's been really difficult for me to sort of stray from their concepts about who I should be and how I should act. And I think my family is a prime example of how an idea or belief can be misunderstood, and not for any intentional reason. But my family sort of has this viewpoint that if an ism, sexism, racism, if if they're if it's not to the extreme, that it's not racism or that it's not sexism. And I can't speak for racism, obviously. I have that privilege, but I can speak about sexism. And my family sort of believes that if there aren't people yelling at you, oh, get back in the kitchen, bee, and all that stuff, that it's not sexism. Um, and a lot of people tend to have that idea that just because it's not way over the top, that it's a joke or that it's funny or that it shouldn't be taken seriously because it's not extreme. And it's kind of tough to pick your battles with that. But the, my point is that I'm a feminist because I recognize that a lot of language and attitudes that are held about women today are very old, very antiquated, and honestly are out of date. And it's really odd that we live in a society that has the ability for me to do this, where I can record this and put it onto a server, and within minutes, people over the entire globe can watch this. And I know that we live in a world where now that's the norm. But 40 years ago, had someone seen us doing this, they would be astounded at the capabilities that humanity has created over just the last 40 years. Why should ideas that have existed since antiquity not be updated with the same relevance as our technology, at the same rate as our technology is upgraded? And I realize that the human mind does not get replaced every 6 months like the latest, greatest smartphone. It'd be kind of interesting if you could, I guess, but then would we be human? It's a separate idea. But I'm a feminist because we haven't kept up, and what we're capable of and what our societies and cultures are capable of has far outpaced our very negative views of women and race. We don't live in the 1800s. We aren't barbarians knocking each other on the head and taking each other's chickens. We can communicate very quickly. We can enunciate and explain ideas clearly. And women are just as likely as men to be capable of intellectual advantages and understandings. And that's the kind of world we live in, where intelligence is key. Knowing how to effectively run a business, knowing science, knowing math, understanding the functions of a business. That's the world that we live in. And we don't live in a world where physical prowess is what's most important for production, for survival. We don't live in that world anymore. So to hold over this idea from a completely separate time to now is absurd. I am a feminist because I'm frustrated with the way that advanced technology like this has been used as a stepping stone for people who do not want to see their privilege dismantled. And they use that stepping stone to attack people who have opinions. And I know, posting this on YouTube, that probably that very thing is going to happen. That I'm going to post this about why I'm a feminist. Somebody's going to hear the word feminist and get really upset. And they're probably going to comment about how I'm a misandrist. It's probably going to be some terrible joke. I've heard it all. I run a feminist blog. I've heard it all. And it's really interesting because I can't remember who said it, but like any comment on an article or video about feminism legitimizes feminism. And if a woman having an opinion about who she is, about how she's affected and being frustrated about how her life has been shaped by people who leave these kind of crappy comments, has an opinion about them and posts it on the internet, almost without variance, that woman is attacked. And you can see this with people like Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency, Seedling, a girl that I follow. She does these really incredible videos, And they're very well thought out, they're very well put together. And instead of people coming back with an intellectual, well, hey, what about this? Well, what do you think about this? Can you elaborate on this? They get STFU, get back in the kitchen, I'm gonna rape you, you're gonna die, all these things. And that just pushes people more to not want to be your friend and to not want to tolerate your crap. And there are more women now than ever who will not tolerate it. And I'm a feminist because I will not tolerate it. I have the right to my opinion. You have the right to your opinion. And every person has the right to try to obtain knowledge and understanding. And frequently I've noticed that many people who are quick to be anti-feminist or yell at feminists don't actually do a lot of research. Some do. And in my experience, it tends to be one example of a situation that's supposed to dismantle thousands. And an example of this is a user on Tumblr who I ended up having to block. But this user says that women are lying about being raped and that men should not be put in jail for raping women because women don't go to jail for raping men. And they used one article about a guy getting raped by a woman. And the problem with this is that I realize that there are definitely men out there who have been taken advantage of by women. And I'm not denying that fact at all. That's a huge problem that should never be forgotten. And of course, if a woman does that to someone, she should absolutely go to jail. The problem is that they're using someone's pain, something that they went through, that was awful, by the way, to try and dismiss thousands of cases of violence towards women, of sexual assault toward women. Because it happened one time does not mean that it's equal to the number of times that women get raped. Statistics have shown us that women are raped more often than men. And that's not to say that it's a women's only issue, but the higher percentage of violence towards women is very reflective of the idea that women are objects that we should be taken advantage of at any turn, and that it should be expected of us to keep our mouths shut because we are apparently sexual vessels for guys. And if I go out of my house at night and someone attacks me, or I go out on a date with someone and they attack me, that I should be held responsible for that. And whether people consciously think that that's a legitimate idea or not, it's very reinforced in our political justice system and in our movies and our media, that we don't believe women when they say that we're taken advantage of. And that's a really big problem. And it makes it more difficult for male victims to come out and speak about the issues, because people then will say, what are you talking about? Like, you got laid, you're supposed to be happy. Or make fun of them because they got taken advantage of by the weaker sex. And it's really important to abolish those ideas. And these and many other reasons are why I'm a feminist, but those are the basic ones. Gender stereotyping, women being yelled at on the internet for daring to speak up, unfair accountability, and many, many other reasons, including not being able to leave my house at night